This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 178.
All these people were really economics majors. They weren't necessarily people who were looking to trade. They were more investors looking into the financial side of companies and things like that. So that was cool. They were all very interested in that, and that was fine because that opened up the other side of things for me.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success, who is trying to work on not letting 20-year-old football players ruin his day. Play Trader.
Yeah, and it's just so pathetic, and I am getting better at it. But to think that Saturday afternoons during the fall, as I watch college football, and to think that my blood gets boiling because some 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid makes the mistake. It's like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I allowing this to happen? It just doesn't make any sense when you remove yourself from the equation. No, I mean, NFL, that makes, I can see a bigger argument. These guys are out there making millions of dollars, and they're being paid to supposed to be doing all this stuff. So I can see the anger there. But why am I getting upset at some college kid that makes a mistake or does something stupid? It's so not worth it. It used to really ruin my day. Like if and I'm talking about Ohio State as a graduate there. If Ohio State would lose, I would be just insanely, like, my day would just be ruined. But I am getting a little bit better at that. Ches, I know you're into sports, but more so, actually, that brings about the question. Were you like that during the World Cup, Ches, or were you just totally a casual fan? Because I know you got pretty much into the World Cup, which was just on several weeks ago.
I've been a soccer fan for a long time and used to have kind of season tickets to Chicago's team and stuff like that. So the fact that the U.S. wasn't in it, I was more so
Don't even get me started
trying to
my goodness.
Yeah, that'll get my blood boiling right there. But yeah, so I was more so trying to figure out who I thought was going to go all the way to the finals from like the group stages. And I did say that France would be in position 1 or 2 for that. So I was correct in that. So it was definitely more of a kind of a casual thing. But for me, when hockey season rolls around, I catch myself doing what I always see when people are watching footballs. They're like, oh yeah, our team is doing this or our coach is this. And I'm like, well, you're not on the team, so we shouldn't really all be getting that mad. But I assure you, when the Blackhawks are doing horrible, it can ruin my day. And I start cursing at things and stuff like that. And I'm like, why? I don't even hold a little candle flame to these people, the amount of skill that they're playing right now, and I get so heated about it. But yeah,
are you working on it?
I have to catch myself.
Or are you? Some people are like they're cool with it. Like there's 60 years old, and people are still freaking out about it. But do you want to fit? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that for me, I am trying to work on it because it's kind of why am I letting the young kids disrupt the rest of my actual life that matters?
Make you sour after the game's over and stuff like that. So I definitely, after having 2 crummy seasons of hockey, have become a lot better in being more level when the game is over and just going about my day and being like, oh, well, we lost again. So maybe that's just because I'm disappointed. But yeah, I'm definitely better than I used to be. For a good stretch of time out of college there, I was way serious about it. So, but yes, I have gotten better. That's
good.
For sure.
We're improving. Well, speaking of college, we have a recent graduate of college. Matt is his name in the chat room for you members. He goes by dewolf, and I'm looking at his avatar right now. He's got a black circle with the wolf avatar, or with the wolf silhouette. It's truly a thing of beauty. And he's a newer member, and we go down all sorts of different pathways with him. And he shares. What I like about Matt is he doesn't hide anything. He's just like, yeah, I did this. Yeah, I did that, and there's some horror stories. He admits to doing a little bit of pumping in his day, which I think, if we're all honest, we've done in some form or another. But yeah, due to his candidness, there's definitely learning opportunities that can be found here. And so let's get to our talk with Matt, and his name is Matt, not Greg. I'm kind of an idiot, but Matt. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. Now, are you watching this? Before I go into this question, for context sake, by the time this airs, this will be in the past, but as we're recording this is the day of Facebook's earnings when it's mass chaos after hours right now. So my question to you, Matt, is are you watching any of this Facebook action?
I am not. I was just on my commute home from work, and I started to see the chat room light up, so that's about all I gathered from it. But yeah, I heard it's pretty brutal for some people, and it's a great day for others.
It is. Ches, and I do want to just publicly congratulations. You've talked about being mechanical, sticking to the system. And, sometimes, and I say this too, and this is for everybody, sometimes the plan is, you're in loss control mode, meaning you've accepted the fact you're going to take a loss. And it's just, let's just keep it controlled so that the heartbeat continues and the uptrend continues. But sometimes all of a sudden things just work out in your favor where loss control modes potentially goes to a profit. And Ches, that's where you're pretty much sitting at right now, from loss control to looking at maybe a profit now all of a sudden.
Yeah, so as Facebook kept creeping up to all-time highs since I had been essentially short the stock for 3 months now, a magical fire-breathing unicorn came out of the sky and just crushed the stock by like $40. So yeah, I went from being in loss control mode, closing this trade at the end of the week, no matter where it ended up, and now I think I'm going to hit like 80% profit. So yeah, can't complain about that. Those are nice surprises every once in a while. I don't count on those ever, though.
Exactly. But that's also the point where if you ever find yourself, everything always goes against me, woe is me. I assure you, there are plenty of, now don't get me wrong, there's situations where that happens, but there's also situations where things actually do go in your favor. So that's why you got to just kind of stick with the system, stick with the strategy. But to Ches's point, he is admitting that like his strategy is not harped upon the fact of going from loss control mode to all of a sudden being in the profit. He's the fire-breathing unicorn, that's a great analogy, showed up and helped him out. But yeah, that's good stuff. So, but Greg, I guess we just kind of timed this at probably a good time because I'd probably sit here all night and try to like scalp this thing in after hours. But I need to move on with my evening and do something a little bit more productive, which I would consider this productive. What did I just call you, Greg?
Yeah, I was like, is there someone
I'll
else?
be honest. I don't know why, but I think your name is Greg. And I have to keep looking over at the software and seeing it's Matt. It's Matt. I think I might have known a Greg. I don't know if you want your last name out, so I won't say your last name. But I think I knew a Greg with your last name, and that's why in my mind your name is Greg. So if I call you Greg again, my apologies. I'll do my best though. But
if you see Greg again, just close the software and we'll just end it there.
See you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, peace out. Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Well, you seem like a cool guy, not only from the chat room, but now we kind of have confirmation here chatting. So, Greg, where did all this start for?
Hey, there's round two.
Idiot. I'm an idiot. Matt.
Clay, I am done.
Yeah, peace out. I wish I could say that was staged. It was not. Matt, where did all this start?
Easier. You can call me first name or last name. Doesn't matter to me. My alias in the chat is the last name, so if you'd prefer to call me that, that's no problem either.
Yeah, I need to prove to myself that I'm not a total moron. So this may be a failure, but I'm going with Matt. So Matt, take us back to the beginning. Where did this whole journey start for you? Where did you first hear about the markets? Kind of how did you hear about them, and what sorts of things and dynamics kind of work together to get you to that point where it went from, okay, yeah, I've heard about the stock market, but now I want to get a little bit more involved with it.
Yeah. So when I was probably in high school, maybe even younger, maybe middle school, my aunt always used to send me books for my birthday. She would either send a book or back then it was a VCR tape. So she would send one of those. And at one point I had received a book called The Teenage Investor. And at the time I was like, yeah, screw that. I'm not going to read that. And I kind of I shoved it in my closet and sort of forgot about it for quite some time, actually. It wasn't until probably, freshman year of college, I, sort of was cleaning out my closet and I stumbled back upon the book and I decided to open it up and give it a quick read. So that's sort of how I learned a little bit about, investing. And again, this was called The Teenage Investor, not necessarily the trader. So it wasn't, all about trading. It was more about investing, fundamental analysis, looking into companies. But that was my first exposure.
Matt, let me ask you this, because I think I want to try to take a learning lesson. Why didn't you read it? Was it because it was a book in and of itself, or because it was a book about investing? But why did you just say screw this and you just threw it in the closet?
When I first got it, I was probably too young to really care. It was probably a combination of the both. At that point in my career, if you will, I was books were not really interesting to me. I wasn't looking to learn more information outside of the classroom. And the second part of that was definitely, the stock market's for adults. It's not something that I need to learn about now. This can wait. So
awesome. That's I think most people can relate to that. My question here to you, and for you younger listeners out there, that who knows, maybe you're in high school, maybe you're just, you're on the younger spectrum of things. In hindsight, Matt, do you regret not having interest then and not getting started back then? Is that maybe, do you wish you would have just picked up that book and read it?
Oh, absolutely. Knowing what I know now about, compounding interest and, the benefits of starting, as early as possible, I kick myself every day not picking that book up the second I got it and taking it a little more seriously. Yeah,
that's so. I mean, if you get anything out of this, younger listeners, please, it's not for adults. I mean, you need to be very smart with it, but start learning about it and you don't need to get anything fancy. But the sooner you start, like Matt already nailed, compounding interest is great. So yeah, hopefully. I've never met somebody that says, you know what? No, I don't regret not starting sooner. Everybody's regret is, I wish I would have started sooner. So thank you for sharing that, Matt. And I apologize for cutting you off, but I thought that might be an interesting point there. So you get the book, you find it later on in life, and you pick it up and read it. So pick it up from there.
Yeah. So at this point, it was, like I said, I was reading the book, kind of working my way through it freshman year of college this summer before then. And, so I looked into it and I was reading, and in one of the passages it said, warning, and again, this was written by a teenager because, he's called the teenage investor. It said, warning in bold letters, do never ever day trade. And that right away to me was like, okay, this guy is saying to never do something. It's got to either be really bad or, something that he doesn't want people to know about. So that's when I first looked into, what is day trading. And, like everyone else, I go on Google, I type in what is day trading, and a bazillion things pop up. And yeah, that's sort of where I learned that people can actually make money by buying and selling stocks in the same day. And before that Google search, I was thinking, stock is like you buy it, you wait a really long time, and eventually it's going to be worth more money. So that was where I learned about day trading.
Clay, I want to hear your opinion on this, because I'm not sure if this is a guy thing or this is a universal thing that goes across all genders. But the fact that Matt started looking into day trading because the book said whatever you do, never day trade. That's kind of like, don't touch the stove after I've cooked on it, or don't touch the lawnmower muffler, or things like that. I'm speaking from experience here. Similar to Matt, when people tell me not to do something, I usually think the same thing, like, oh, maybe there's a reason why I should look into this. I don't ever take advice kind of blindly like that, but I don't know if that's just a guy thing or what, but I think it's funny that he heard do not day trade, and the first thing he does is goes to Google and searches day trading.
Yeah, that was immediately what I thought is, my brain got turned. And so maybe, Ches, we should start to say what? Do not manage risk. Don't even care about risk, because I think I don't know, maybe that should be the new marketing on the front page, is just me holding up signs, risk control is for losers or something. I don't know. But that is, you already nailed it though. Yeah, it's like, don't touch the stove. It's like, I told you not to touch it. So, it is weird how that works. But yeah, I don't know. We the next female guest we have on, we'll have to ask her if that translates across the gender gap or not. But yeah, this is good stuff. So keep going with it, Matt.
Yep. So from there, I started reading Investopedia articles, and after that quick Google search, I learned pretty quickly that you can't day trade on fundamental analysis, and I learned about this thing we call technical analysis. So Investopedia, I went straight there because that is another big thing that pops up when you Google day trading, and I started taking notes on what is a candlestick, what is the high, low, close, open, different patterns that Investopedia has these free articles on, And I was taking notes on everything I could get my hands on for free, and just trying to learn, because I knew that this was something I wanted to learn about in the long run, and something I might want to pursue. And I mean, it's the classic story. I was baited by, people making these huge returns, and I saw that and I was like, wow, people can do this. Why can't I do that? And it's just so typical to see that stuff and then want to jump right in, and that's sort of what I did. So after I read all these Investopedia articles, I watched all these videos, I started to, think about, hey, is there a brokerage I can get in contact with and open a small account with? And that's exactly what I did. Not even 3 weeks maybe after I first learned about what day trading was.
So I got to ask now, so obviously there's something called the pattern day trader rule, and for those of you not familiar with it, it's that if you have an account below $25,000, you are subject to 3 day trades in a week. If you have more than $25,000, there is no, any kind of limit like that at all. So you are brand new to the market. You just learned about day trading 3 weeks ago, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to kind of get into this. So what did you open a SureTrader account? Is that what happened? Because now,
nope.
Okay, so you got to tell us what you did, because now that's what most people end up doing, including myself. So I just had to check. But yeah, so what'd you end up doing with this 3 weeks worth of knowledge you had?
No, I dodged that SureTrader bullet, and I ended up opening a TradeKing account. It's now Ally Invest. But I had talked to my cousin. He had a account with Options House, and one of my friends also had one with TradeKing. So I ended up going with TradeKing because that's just what my friend recommended. And so I opened that account, and after reading through the Investopedia articles, I sort of realized that the PDT rule was going to hold me back. So I was aware that I would only be able to make 1 or 2 trades. It wasn't like I was going to hop in with all my money and make a living out of this in that 3 week time period. It was I would say I was somewhat, and don't hop on me here because I know what I'm about to say is ridiculous, but I was somewhat confident that I could do this, but only 1 to 2, 3 times a week with my 3 weeks worth of knowledge. So I opened that TradeKing account, and the first thing I did was, well, how do I find stocks? So I went on Google and I found StockTwits and let the questions rain.
That's actually, I don't know, maybe I'm in a philosophical mood right now, but I mean, I think by default, I would argue that if you showed up and are like, well, I can't do this, I'm not going to be able to do this, then, well, you would have never started in the first place. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with you showing up and saying, after 3 weeks, I can do it, because you do have to have confidence in this world we call trading. Now, where does it go from confidence to fool's gold to cockiness? That's where the complicated part comes in. But at the core, I mean, I don't really fault you for showing up and saying that you could do it, because, well, you better have that attitude, or else why are you even doing it in the first place? So I don't think that's the most terrible thing out there, but I mean, it's definitely, unfortunately, you can't just show up and be like, hey, I'm confident and automatically have success, because there's definitely a lot of quicksand pits of cockiness and overconfidence and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't really think there's anything to jump on you about in that regard, other than, well, that's good that you're confident. But StockTwits, all right, well, you've landed on StockTwits.
Yep, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, so let's open up that can of worms. So please proceed. I'm handing you the can opener right now.
All right, well, here we go. So a couple of the first trades that I had ever thought about making came purely from StockTwits. I was on, I don't use it now, so I don't remember if it was like, is there a popular page or a hot stocks page? The home page, whatever's
probably
trending.
Probably a heat map you're talking about, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. So I had clicked on, yep. So I had clicked on one that was trending, and, classic message board, everyone saying buy, 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 buy. And I looked at a few different options. I looked at some news headlines, and I ended up buying Merck, the healthcare or medical company. I'm not sure what they do, MRK. And I bought them without even considering the chart. Really, I had the chart open when I made the transaction to buy, and I sort of looked at it. There was a bunch of green candles on it. So as a novice trader, I was saying, hey, I'm going to make some good money right here. This is it.
Hey, look at that. He's using candlesticks and not even a line chart. So there you go.
And all I hear is all green candles. So I'm pretty sure that you were chasing, but I don't. That's just that's just a hunch on my part. But hey, you're using technical analysis, so you got it all figured out. So keep on, yeah.
Exactly. I had my technical chart pulled up. I think at that time, my mom or dad, I was still at home for the summer, had walked behind me and kind of asked me what the heck that was on my screen. So I thought I was being fancy with my chart, but anyways, I bought. I think it went up a couple of cents and then immediately just dumped. And it didn't dump too hard on me. I think I ended up getting out for a 50-cent loss on like 10 shares or something like that. So nothing crazy, nothing huge. And that was my first trade ever in the stock market, and it was a loser. And I was like, wow, what the heck just happened? All this green, and I lost.
So I guess the real thing here is how you kind of recover from that, because most people kind of come into the market similar to you in the sense of, oh, I got this. Like, you got to come in with confidence. There's no doubt about that. But there's a difference between kind of like unsubstantiated cockiness and just actually being confident in your ability. So you take a loser on your first trade. To be honest with you, I'm kind of proud of you. You missed the top by a couple cents. That's a rite of passage. That always happens at the beginning, generally, for most people. So, I mean, where do you go from here? Is your ego completely shattered? Are you going to take revenge on the stock? Or are you going to learn more? What's it look like for you?
I'm not completely shattered. I'm a little flustered just because, I saw green and I thought I was going to be on top of the world. But as we know, that's not how it works. So what I ended up doing is, because I only had, those 3 trades per week and I was aware of that, I just, stepped away. And I was going to go and learn a little bit more and see how this worked. So this is this is where it gets a little interesting, because this is when I found Clay's videos on YouTube. So I found Clay's videos, and at the time, Clay Trader video charts was happening through your normal channel. It was before the split. And I watched a bunch of your reviews on the technical charts, and I was trying to learn what you were talking about, these support lines and moving averages and these things. And I finally was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to wait for a chart that he makes that says, things are looking pretty good, and then I'm going to wait for some news on it. And this is where I sort of took my second trade that ended up being a very, very, very big and costly learning experience for me. So this is the one. And it ended up being the stock eBio, 11 Biotherapeutics.
Oh yeah, eBio. That they were popular back in the Ebola days. Are they still in Ebola or whatever that was? Ebola.
I don't even know.
Remember that, Chess?
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh, absolutely. The Ebola scare was great. I'm sure they've pivoted to probably some marijuana infused energy drinks or something, or moon mining, or who knows.
So I guess just for clarity's sake, you took that first trade. It was a loser. What sort of time gap was there before until you took that second trade?
It might have been a week and a half.
Okay.
Not very long. Not very long at all. It was literally just enough time for me to watch a couple videos, look at some news, and again go back to StockTwits and see what was happening there.
Okay, yeah. So walk us through this trade. I'm assuming you found it on StockTwits, but yeah, take us. People like horror shows because there's lots of good learning lessons in them. So yeah, walk us through this.
Absolutely. So you made the chart video on it. StockTwits was raving about it. So the morning that the news article came out, it was probably some phase 2 biotech thing, that news article that was released, and everything was going crazy. Stock was crazy green. I definitely bought the top. I probably bought it at $5.90 something. It never really came out to $6, but I bought the top of $5.90 something, and it immediately started coming down like the pump and dumps do. And so I bought the top and I walked away because I was confident in myself that I had learned from the last trade and I was going to be able to turn this one around into a winner. I had learned what averaging down was in Investopedia, so I walked away, maybe an hour went by, and the stock is down 50 cents or something like that on the $5 stock. So I'm averaging down at now, somewhere close to 540. And I walk away again, and I come back in another hour or two, and it's still going down. It's probably at $5 now. And I said, you know what? StockTwits is saying this thing is going to go up. Investopedia is saying average down. I'm just going to do it again. So I did it one more time, and that was it for that day. I think it closed. It definitely did close red on the day for me, but I had averaged down twice in that day, and I was ready to just hold it until this thing turned into a winner for me. And this is where things kind of get bad, and I turn into a bag holder. And I held it for a total of 7 months, maybe. I'm saying man. 7 months. Woo. Yeah. Okay, so this thing goes all the way back down to, 190s, $2 range, and I still have hope because StockTwits is saying this thing's going up. And in the meantime, I'm at school, talking with my friends, and I'm in class, and I have the stock ticker pulled up constantly because I'm just waiting for this thing to go up. And one of my professors walks by and he says, "Oh, are you trading the stock market?" And I said, sort of, because I knew at that point enough time had gone by where I was like, you know what? No, I'm getting hammered by the stock market. I am definitely not trading. So I finally cut my loss in that one. Cost me about $700 or $800 to realize that, hey, this is not just some easy thing that you can pick up overnight or in 3 weeks for that matter. So that's sort of my story for the big loser, where I was humbled by the market.
Well, that's pretty good. I'm happy to hear it wasn't, some crazy outlandish figure that, you couldn't live in your apartment anymore because you couldn't afford it and had to go move in, with mom and dad and stuff like that. So obviously you had risk capital on the line. You've now learned your lesson about what it means to truly be a bag holder. And my condolences for that 7 months of time. That is never fun to sit underwater for that
brutal.
long.
Yeah. Matt, I can totally relate because, sorry, Chaz, but in college, I remember the exact. Mine was the stainless steel muffler company, ticker FCCN, and man, now we had flip phones back then, so I couldn't check it like in class. But yeah, I mean, I was always telling my friends. They were asking me, because I thought I was going to be just like, I was such an idiot. Man, was I an idiot. But I can totally relate, Matt, to the whole college experience and all that sort of stuff where your buddies are asking about it. You're probably telling them about it.
And I will say, even at one point, I was the guy on StockTwits saying, hey, eBio is going up, it's going up, because I knew at that point what the pump and dump, how that worked. And I myself was trying to be a pumper because I wanted to get out for a win. So that's the ultimate caveat there.
Well, I mean, thank you for admitting that, because that is why people are saying what they are. Exactly. It's not like Matt is alone. StockTwits is, maybe Ponzi scheme. It's pretty much a Ponzi scheme in the sense of I am buying something. Now I need somebody else to buy it from me at a higher level. So I will say whatever it takes to get it to that higher level to make somebody else.
Musical chairs.
Yeah, musical chairs. That's probably a little bit better. We don't need StockTwits suing us. StockTwits, you're not a Ponzi scheme, but the whole idea of a stock. Now, of course, StockTwits, let's give them credit. I mean, you can go and talk about Apple and a lot of blue chips. So, but on these smaller micro cap ones, that's where the musical chair comes in. And Matt and I probably did this. I mean, when FCCN, I was there. Hey, this thing's great, and I was just so. I mean, it's not like Matt is some evil human being. He's just doing what pretty much everybody on StockTwits does on those low float things. Everybody wants to talk to get it to go up, so they can either usually just get out or just make money. So I mean,
wow, look at this little gem I found. You guys are going to miss out. Then somebody else buys, and holy moly, this thing's going to go up 1,000%. And then it goes on and on and on.
No,
StockTwits is not a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah,
it's
not a
musical chairs.
Musical chairs. There we go. Now, Matt, were you of the thought? Were you of the group think that some have that I was a curse of the kiss of death, or there's a curse, or were you anything like that?
At one point, I was like, you know what? Every time Clay makes a video, and I know you have a video about this, the stock goes up and then it goes down immediately. And I knew that that's not how this thing worked, and that there are other things that contribute to the stock going up and down. So I would say I was somewhere in the middle. Okay. I recognize that, different news reports and pump and dumps and, all these different things that make smaller cap stocks move a high amount, are separate from a video that you're making.
Right. So it sounds like confirmation bias got you a little bit, but not quite to the full extent. So that's fair enough. And to your credit, I don't have any problem with, people thinking that, because confirmation bias is a very real thing in psychology. It's like psychology 101. But it's okay. At one point, at some point, you got to be able to admit it's confirmation bias and then move on from it, which you clearly have. So, I mean, that's why I never get mad at people that are like, you're the curse. It's like, well, consider this. Now, if afterwards you're like, I'm not watching that, it's like, well, then fine. You're just a lemming that's going to keep your head in the sand, and there's nothing I can do for you. But you were clearly open-minded enough for that. So you took the loss. Where did you go from there?
So from here, I knew I was down in my eyes big. That $700 loss, that was big for me. But I just had to, take it for what it was and start getting serious about this. So I did a little bit of research, and with my friend, a very good friend of mine, we actually ended up being roommates. We joined the Keene State Investment Club. That's where I went to school, Keene State. And so we joined the club, and this is a place where I thought I was going to learn a little bit more about, what it means to invest and trade and just the market as a whole. So we showed up to the first few meetings and quickly realized that this was going to be more about, looking into the fundamentals of a company. All these people were really economics majors. They weren't necessarily people who were looking to trade. They were more investors looking into the financial side of companies and things like that. So that was cool. They were all very interested in that, and that was fine, because that opened up the other side of things for me. That was sort of like, hey, if you're looking at some longer term investments instead of trades, investments, these are things that you might want to consider. And also, there's just another way to do this. It's not like there's only one way. So this friend of mine and I, we said, hey guys, we're sort of interested in the trading aspect of this more. And by this time I had watched, 100 million more YouTube videos, read 1,000 more articles. And at this point I sort of knew about options and what options were, and how if I had a cash account, I could trade options and I would not be subject to the pattern day trading rule. So this friend of mine and I, we convinced the president of the club to buy Clay's Option Simplified course for the club. So we bought the course.
Did you email?
Wow.
Did you email me about that way back when?
I might have, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I feel because I'm like, wait, somebody actually asked me about that. I feel like you asked if that would be okay or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it would be all right if we bought it, for the school's purposes. If I wanted to make sure there would be no conflict with multiple people watching the videos, for the club.
Okay, no, this is all ringing a bell. Ches, this is getting a scary world. Now we're educating college kids. This is no,
yeah,
that's
this is dangerous.
Professor Clay Trader.
Yeah, I like how you had to convince. That sounds like a whole podcast in and of itself. I'd like to. I would like to have been a fly in the wall there. But all right, so you get the Option Trading Simplified course, and how'd the club take it?
So it was interesting. I found it, fascinating. One, because this was a way for me to get involved in, the market and the blue chip stocks at one, a really low cost, and two, do it as frequently as I'd like I said, without being subject to that PDT rule. So I was all in. I was up late watching the videos. I was studying, taking notes. Same thing with this friend of mine who was interested in the first place with me, but the rest of the group sort of brushed it off, and it was kind of disappointing for us to see, that they weren't taking our side of, what we were interested in the market as seriously as they were taking their fundamental analysis and all that stuff. So they sort of brushed it off, and I doubt they really got the full value of that course, but, it's always do with it what you want. So if they ever get interested... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just want to jump in here. Is that you have to recognize, though, that you had kind of come into this club already experiencing some of the market. Granted, it wasn't like the best experience by any means, losing $700, but you had already kind of gotten a taste of, I'm going to call it the trading bug. So you kind of already came into it realizing that you definitely had an interest in that. So it actually doesn't surprise me too much that those econ majors and stuff like that were less interested in it, because to them, the uses of trading options on a cash account are drastically different than people who might be utilizing options in, say, like an investment mindset or things like that. Most people would be buying stock, like I'm sure they were doing in your class, and selling against it or something like that. So it doesn't actually surprise me too much, but I'm glad to see that you got a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That one definitely sparked even more interest. And, it was at that time where I sort of took the next step in my journey and opened up a Thinkorswim account. I didn't fund it right off the bat, but I talked with them and I got them to give me live data without funding the account. I begged and pleaded. I was a student. I can't quite jump in all the way yet. Please give me live data. And they ended up doing that for me, and I had a paper account right after taking that course. So then after that, go ahead.
I was going to say, so what were you going to use to kind of find trade ideas now? So you were using StockTwits before to kind of find trending stocks, things like that. Obviously, if your idea or your goal was to day trade options, you got to kind of find the liquid ones. So did you do a little bit of research prior to kind of even doing that about, which tickers have kind of the highest option volume?
Yep. It was kind of a combination of two things. Definitely a little Google research, most liquid options and, how to day trade options. Even if you just Google that, it'll come up. But it led me straight to the S&P 500, SPY, and then just the big blue chip stocks, because, people are frequently doing the same thing I was trying to do with it, and also doing these longer term investments with options. There was definitely enough volume in them, which I had learned from Clay's course, that I could take part and not be worried about getting stuck, not having a buyer when I was ready to get out.
Yeah, liquidity, definitely very, very important. Now, I probably should have asked this a while ago, but where are we is this like within the past several months? What month is this when this is actually taking place with the TOS account and the paper trading?
So this was when I was a sophomore in college. So a few years ago now. I just graduated in May.
Okay.
So about, I would say 2.5 years ago.
Okay, all right. So, there's just trying to picture the timeline here. So then, yeah, you definitely got Options Trading Simplified, that course, when it was relatively new then, because that course is probably right around there when it came out, give or take a little bit. But so you what to look for. You're using the platform. So, how did that go? Let me ask you this. Were you being realistic in your day trading, or were you buying, 30 contracts at a time of Tesla or Amazon? How realistic were you actually treating the paper trading?
Yeah. Well, at first, I still have it in my little trade journal. The first paper trade I ever took was literally pen and paper, and I had written it down because I wasn't too sure. I was intimidated, to be honest with you, with how complicated the Thinkorswim technology was. So I found the options price finally after digging for it and not, realizing what it was. And I wrote it down on paper, and it was an Apple call back then. And I wrote it and I tracked it like you had taught us to do in the options course. Nice. Every Friday. So I watched it, and it did end up going up. So I was pretty happy about that. But in the meantime, while this was happening, I was watching YouTube videos on just how to use the platform, which helped tremendously. So then once I finally got comfortable with it, I actually didn't even start paper trading options. What I did was just trade SPY outright, which was terribly silly of me. But that's hindsight speaking. And at the time, I was validating this by saying, I'm just honing the skill of how do I read the chart? How do I read the chart? If I can make a little bit of money trading it outright, then I must be doing something right and reading the chart properly. So that's sort of how I started with the actual software and paper trading. And eventually I ended up taking a break. And that's just because schoolwork sort of picked up. And in the last junior and senior year, it ramped up a little bit, and I unfortunately couldn't watch and trade the market as often as I would have liked. So I took a small break for a few years.
What degree? What did you major in?
I majored in graphic design. So at any given time, there was always 4 or 5 deadlines happening. My senior capstone class was at 8 a.m. and it went for 2 hours. So I always missed the market open and was constantly in the labs working. So yeah, that's sort of why I had to take a break there.
Yeah, I may or may not have skipped a couple college classes for the market's sake, but I'm not going to confirm nor deny that. But man, getting started young is great, but getting started when you're young is annoying because like you have all these other things you got to do with like classes and stuff like that. But I'd say that was probably your time was best spent getting that degree because graphic design. Thank you for not saying that you got a degree in the history of Dutch sailboat making because that would have been But that would have put
Roman wood shoemaking.
Yeah, that would have put Ches and I in a very awkward spot of, oh, that's good call on your part, but good. It sounds like you got a very applicable type degree that would have some demand for it, but that's a whole nother discussion. So I guess you took a break. How long did that break last for? And then what ultimately brought you back into the markets?
So like I said, the break lasted almost all the way through senior year of college, and in sort of the last month or so after my senior show was over, I got really, really into it, and I actually ended up funding my Thinkorswim account. And I sat down and said, I'm going to get serious about this, and I'm going to make it happen. So that was probably late April. Maybe, late April of this year. So fairly recently, I'm just getting back into this. So yeah, I funded the account, and I started watching market opens. You know, classes were sort of winding down, and I was able to sit there and watch. And I started to dip my feet into the water a little bit, and I traded one contract once, and I got blasted. I sold it for a $34 loss, which to me was huge because it was one contract, and I also took a huge hit on commissions, and this is where I sort of learned a little bit about, you know, what commissions are and how they affect your trade, which I wasn't keeping track of on the paper platform.
Yeah, that definitely is a cost of doing business that when you don't get me wrong, it shouldn't impact your trade plan, but I assure you that anybody with smaller accounts, it definitely will kind of have an impact on you. But so you'd taken this kind of long break, you kind of stepped back into it. What initially kind of brought you into, I guess, the inner circle to start with? Was it because you had watched all of Clay's videos before and taken that options course and stuff like that and found value in it? Or were you looking for kind of trade ideas, or what was your logic behind joining?
Yeah, I should also mention I sort of skipped this part. I don't know why. After, or sort of in that break, I can't remember when exactly I purchased it, but I had bought robotic trading. So I had also taken that course of Clay's, which definitely increased my chart reading skill. So I was a little more confident coming back this second time around to look at charts and interpret them. But for the inner circle, after taking those two courses and just sort of watching the YouTube videos and all, I said, for $99, how can you go wrong? I know that's how you advertise it. It's like, it's too good to be true. So for $99, I said, why not? I'm going to join. And it's been great so far. Great group of people in there to trade with and chat with. So that's sort of how I landed there.
Okay, so because I was curious, I don't know, you've been around for probably like a couple months now, give or take?
Yeah, just a couple months. I bought it after I finished school. And,
okay, and that's why I think you had mentioned like, oh well, I'm maybe too new or whatever, but you volunteered to come share your story, which Ches and I always appreciate. But yeah, I mean, it's when Ches and I say we want a gamut of people, we really do. So I mean, you're literally kind of fresh off the wagon in terms of being new to the group, and that's good stuff. We've enjoyed having you. So I guess, what does your trading look like right now? I mean, do you want to stick with the options, or I guess what are kind of what sorts of things are you focused on, and maybe where sorts of places do you want to go over the next several months?
Yeah. So right now I have a full-time job, and so this is sort of where I'm, caught in the headlights a little bit and trying to figure out what it is I want to do for myself. So right now I sort of watch as I'm at work. I watch, and if there's a good setup, I take a trade from my mobile device, and that's sort of what my trading consists of now. But where I'd like it to go is eventually, I'm interested in getting getting a membership to Clay Trader University and learning about the advanced options. I'd like to sort of figure out how I can leverage them to work for me over time, while still every now and then scalping options on SPY or Facebook or Baba or anything like that. So yeah, I'd say definitely I want to look into how I can use them for longer term strategies, but at the same time, when a good opportunity presents itself, take that opportunity and do a scalp, a day trade.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been known to assume incorrectly quite a bit, but your long-term goal is you want to invest in some more education, and that way you can kind of branch out in the forms of streams of income that you have coming in from scalping, and then from options farming, as we call it, like what Ches does a lot. Is that kind of a fair summation so far, what your goals are looking into the future?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I'd say more so that's the near-term goal, and eventually I'd like to dip my toes into trading stock outright and see if I can do that. But that's something I haven't really looked into seriously enough yet to be able to say this is what I want to do in the future. But it's something I'd at least like to explore.
Yeah, and once you get into Clay Trader University, which I promise that was not scripted, nobody forced him to say that. You'll definitely have plenty of avenues where you can go down and pursue all those different things after you learn the backbone of backbones of backbones, which is charts. So I mean, how is your trading? Let me ask it this way: how is your trading going with a job? I mean, you put on a trade. Are we talking once a day, a couple times a week? Because we have a lot of people that listen with jobs. So I mean, how does trading and what you're doing right now fit into somebody in your situation, young guy with a job?
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to have a few monitors where I'm set up as a graphic designer. I have a couple, but so I every morning, once 9:15ish rolls around, I sit down at my desk and start to pull up some charts. I use TradingView just because I don't have Thinkorswim installed on those computers for charting, but so I pull up a couple of charts and I just set them up how I would normally on my regular computer, a couple different time frames, and I watch. I tend not to trade the first 15 minutes, but I sort of see how things are going to unfold for the day, and that's just because because I'm at the job, I can't constantly be monitoring it. It's okay if I sit down for that first half hour and watch, but from there I sort of decide if there's a playable setup, and I'll get in, set an exit order, and I'll sort of walk away and monitor it from my phone.
Now, do you set a stop order at the same time, or just order to exit for profit?
Order to exit for profit, which I know is a bit risky, and it has come to bite me in the past. So maybe that's something I can work on. But for right now, I'm usually only looking for a quick 10 cents out of the option. So nothing crazy, but at the same time, if it doesn't and it goes the other way on me, I'm at the mercy of, am I going to check my phone before it gets to past my mental stop. I definitely have a mental stop, but not a hard stop.
Gotcha. Just wanted to double check that, and maybe for future use. I know Toss is quite good. I'm not sure about on mobile though. About OCO orders, one cancels the other, so you could actually set both a stop and a target, just to kind of really limit anything crazy happening. But I guess it all depends on how often you're checking it. But Matt, if you had to kind of pick, what you're excelling at, what your strengths would be currently, what would you say those are?
That's a tough one. Identifying patterns and just starting to understand how things react. So like I said, I'm big on trading SPY, and as you guys know, and some other people know, it's each individual ticker acts sort of in its own individual way, and they have a little bit of a personality. So it's interesting to sort of watch day after day after day and see these patterns emerge. And I'd say just having the consistency to watch the same thing over and over and over again is a strength of mine, I guess.
Nice. Do you see how SPY closed the day?
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was crazy, wasn't
crazy.
it? Yeah, that was good stuff.
I was thinking, oh, there goes the calls. But, hindsight account is $1 million, right?
Yeah, and the puts went kaput, I guess. So what about some things that you want to work on? So I not really like to use the word weaknesses, but areas you seek and know that you need to improve within. What are some of those?
Definitely learning how to play the different setups. There's a couple that I'm pretty confident in. A couple of the pull patterns are usually pretty good and they work for me. But some of the other things like the wedges and the more complicated things, probably that's something I could work on. The other thing is just working on taming the emotions. There's definitely something inside of me that, as soon as I put that real money trade on the line, even though I'm only trading, $40 contracts, as soon as I get it on the line, even though I'm at work, I'm constantly checking that phone to make sure, things are going my way. So controlling those voices and not letting them get the best of me and sticking to the plan.
Yep, and those are things that I think people both new and old in trading are probably always striving to kind of keep getting, working on and get better at. But Matt, it was an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. I do know the real reason you did come on, though, was to borrow my time machine. And if I were to lend it to you and you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I knew this question was coming and I didn't prepare. But anyways,
I have the answer for you in case you're wondering.
You got the
But
cheat
I want to
sheet?
hear your answer first. First before I hijack your time machine.
If I could go back, I would definitely, get serious about the education portion. I didn't know it at the time, but that second trade or that big loser of mine essentially was that the humbling by the market, and I wish I was a little bit more humble in the beginning and sort of said, if people are offering all these education courses, there must be some value to it, and just cough up the money now, it'll hurt less later.
That's fair. I thought you were gonna go, and my answer would have probably been read the freaking book, because then imagine as a kid, especially as a kid, you're like, don't do something at that age. You'd have been like, what? And you would have been full bore. But I get good answer, and I get what you're saying. And I don't know. Chaz and I try to tell people that listen, you cannot pay, but it's going to be more costly over the long run. But that's just a sales pitch. You're trying to sell stuff. You're right. I mean, we are trying to sell stuff, but that's also the truth of the matter, which you've just confirmed. But some people you'll never be able to convince because they'll just accuse you of being paid by us to say what you just said. So for some, you just got to say, fine, you can just buy the top and sell the bottom, and we'll make money off you. And that's really all you can do about it. But yeah, Matt, well, now it's time to, I haven't screwed up at all. No more Gregs, right? Since the very beginning.
I'm pretty impressed. I'm not going to lie.
I'm pretty impressed, if I must say so myself. But let's move into some fun questions here. And being a younger guy, I was curious. The older generation, I'm always curious what they have to say. But you young kids out there, what's going on in the world of the youngness? So, what is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I don't know if I can narrow it down to one, but the James Bond series, just those ones always got me. It's this dude in a suit, always dresses nicely, badass, and
is that how you showed up to your investment club, dressed like James Bond?
Yeah, you bet.
That's probably why they didn't necessarily get into it, because you're
wore a tux.
Yeah, you're sitting there smoking cigars, pulling up in some rented Lamborghini, and lighting your Cubans with $100 bills. I mean, you probably could have come in with a little bit softer of a landing, but that's how I envision that whole thing unfolding. What about the other movies?
Between The Godfather as like a more serious series, and then Austin Powers, that's always a good one.
It is always a good one there. Clay, are you going to do some quotes from Austin Powers, or should we move along here? I felt like you were getting ready to, but I didn't want to cut you off.
How's that? Lower.
How's that?
Oh, that's one of the best quotes from. Oh, so stupid, but clever writing. I would have never thought to write something like that. Oh, no. Man. Yeah. Anyways, Ches, you're up. We don't need to go down the Austin Power quote trail, so go for it. Cut me off, please.
What's about your favorite meal and dessert?
Favorite meal, breakfast. I love eggs. Eggs from like the diner that are nice and buttery, and then home fries and some bacon or sausage. That's just perfect. Dessert, I'm not really a big sweets guy. Maybe like an apple pie or like a brownie with some ice cream on the side, but that's like Thanksgiving, and
it's pretty American.
Yeah, I was going to say that's pure America right there. There's no. What do you think about that, Canada? For all you Canadian members and listeners, what do you think about them apples? Oh, you see what I did there unintentionally? That was good stuff. Finally, what do you like to do for hobbies outside of the market, outside of work?
Yeah, I like to be on the water. I have a second job that puts me on the water almost every weekend, so that's awesome. And then aside from that, just being outdoors. I like to go, hiking. Climb mountains when I was back in college up in the mountain area, and just be outside.
And sorry about that, Matt had some issues with his internet, but we just went with it because it was during just the fun questions, and I know some of you do like the fun questions, but his entire story, all the learning lessons, all the different kind of nooks and crannies of things that we can all learn from and be reminded of. We got through all that, so Ches and I were like, you know what, we'll just go with that. And, it is what it is. So if there was a time for the internet to cut out, that was probably a good time for it. So before you go, though, a final few things. If you are listening on the YouTube channel, be sure to check out the channel as a whole. There's a lot more to the channel than just these. There's live trade videos. There's quick tip videos. There's a vlog that we have. So a lot of good variety. So check that stuff out, and hopefully you decide to ultimately subscribe to the channel. If you are listening on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, please subscribe. That way you can be kept up to date on new episodes and all that. And especially on iTunes, if you could leave us a rating, that really goes a long way and helps us out quite a bit, and we would really appreciate it. And then finally, if you're listening at claytrader.com on the show notes page, click that share button, leave us comments down below. We do read them. And, we will interact with you, and we love to hear feedback, suggestions, questions, all that good stuff. We try to be as interactive as possible. So thank you again to Matt. Thank you to our esteemed co-host, Ches. And, of course, thank you to all of you as listeners. We'll see you back next week.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.